Well, guys, Halloween is over, and I guess that means we have to go back to normal life. We have to put away the Halloween decorations and stop watching horror movies every single day. Just kidding, we're gonna keep doing that because we're horror fans and we love horror, so of course we're gonna watch it all year long. So if you need some inspiration for some horror movies to watch in November, I have the list for you. This is what I'm calling my Halloween hangover list of 30 movies to watch in November. That's 30 horror movies, one movie per each day in November. So there's no shortage of movies that we can keep on watching even after spooky season's over, even though, you know, it's always going on for horror fans like myself. And if you're watching this, I'm sure you are still celebrating in your heart too. Like I said, there's 30 movies on this list. Watch them in order or mix them up, watch all of them or only watch a few of them. It's up to you. This is just to give you some inspiration for some movies to watch in November that you might not have watched in October. There are going to be some that are very specific to this month. And this list has a mixture of movies that I have and haven't seen. So it's going to be a mix of old favorites of mine that I really like to revisit with new ones that I really need to watch. I tried to have movies from a wide range of time periods. So movies from as early as the 70s up until now, even one that has not technically been released yet. So we'll get to that when we get to it. But there's also going to be a big range in quality of movies on this list. There are some that are big budget studio productions with A-list actors. And then there are some that are low budget. So there's a little something for everybody here. And lastly, I wanted to talk about the themes that this list is divided into. It's kind of 4 loose sections. So starting off, the first section, the first few horror films on this list are going to be cannibal horror films. I don't know about you, but when I think about November, I think about Thanksgiving and therefore think about food. So naturally my mind went to cannibalism. Doesn't everybody's? So that's going to be the first section. Second one is going to be more focused on family horror / horror movies that have really good dinner scenes. Again, leading into that sort of Thanksgiving time feel. And the holidays are always a time for very interesting family dynamics when people get together. So that's why I included that section. The third section is going to be films that are either set on or around the actual Thanksgiving holiday. And finally, the fourth section is going to focus on Indigenous horror. I wanted to place a specific emphasis on Indigenous horror on this list because, as we all know, the Thanksgiving holiday is very fraught with white American conceptions of the history of the relationships between colonizers and Native Americans. I'm not going to go into that in this video. If you comment anything that is in any way combative in regards to that, I will delete and block your comment. So yeah, let's just avoid doing that. I wanted to really focus on movies that were made by Indigenous people, starring Indigenous people, about their stories, telling it from their perspective. And oftentimes these movies focus on tackling topics like colonialism and racism. And as we know, the horror genre is really egregious when it comes to representation of Native Americans and Indigenous people. Just see the trope of the haunted or cursed Indian burial ground. Yeah, so I really have a lot of mixed feelings about this holiday. And while I was researching, there was a Letterboxd user who has a list of Thanksgiving horror movies that they posted, and they put it really well in the description for their list. And so I'm just going to quote them directly because I think they said it really well. And I'll add the link to that list in the description of this video. They said, "I have mixed feelings about this holiday, but I never have mixed feelings about holidays being appropriated by slashers and seeing people get turned into goo on screen." And I really couldn't have put it better myself. So without further ado, let's get into this list. Kicking it off at number 1 is City of the Living Dead from 1980. A psychic participates in a seance where she sees a vision of a priest hanging himself in a church cemetery, causing her to die of fright. A reporter investigates the seance and learns that the priest's suicide has somehow opened a portal to hell and must be sealed by All Saints' Day, or else the dead will overtake humanity. We're kicking it off with a Fulci flick that I've actually never seen before, and it doesn't really fit into any of the categories that I mentioned earlier, but I really wanted to have it at number 1 because it's set on All Saints' release day, which as we know is November 1st. So I wanted to have it kind of kick off this list and be the first movie to watch in November on November 1st. Coming in at number 2 is Fresh from 2022. After quitting dating apps, a woman meets the supposedly perfect man and accepts his invitation to a romantic weekend getaway, only to find that her new paramour has been hiding some unusual appetites. I saw this last year when it was released on Hulu, and I was really impressed by it. I think it's a really interesting take on a cannibal plot in a horror movie, and it just really has something that you can sink your teeth into. Number 3 on this list is Blood Diner from 1987. First they greet you, then they eat you. Two cannibalistic brothers kill various young women to make their flesh part of a new special dish at their rundown restaurant while seeking blood sacrifices to awaken a dormant Egyptian goddess. I'm definitely expecting this one to be very schlocky and cheesy, but the question is it going to be entertaining or is it just going to be bad? I guess we'll see. Number 4 is Bones and All from 2022. Abandoned by her father, a young woman embarks on a 1,000-mile odyssey through the backroads of America where she meets a disenfranchised drifter. But despite their best efforts, all roads lead back to their terrifying pasts and to a final stand that will determine whether their love can survive their otherness. This movie is directed by Luca Guadagnino, who also directed the Suspiria remake, which is one of my favorite remakes and just a really good movie in general. So I'm very interested to see his take on a cannibal love story, and the fact that Timothée Chalamet is in it does not hurt. Number 5 is Motel Hell from 1980. It takes all kinds of critters to make Farmer Vincent's fritters. Farmer Vincent Smith and his sister Ida run a motel attached to a farm where they capture unsuspecting travelers, bury them alive, fatten them up, and then harvest their bodies as ingredients for his famous brand of smoked meats. How can you possibly beat a tagline like "it takes all kinds of critters to make Farmer Vincent's fritters"? I mean, that's just the best. And that description really doesn't leave anything up to the imagination, but this is not a movie that's trying to hide a big plot twist or anything. It's kind of just wearing its heart on its sleeve, so to speak, and it's just fun, low-budget 80s cheese. Number 6 is Raw from 2016. In Justine's family, everyone is a vet and a vegetarian. At 16, she's a gifted teen ready to take on her first year in vet school, where her older sister also studies. There, hazing starts right away. Justine is forced to eat raw meat for the first time in her life. Unexpected consequences emerge as her true self begins to form. This movie makes an interesting choice to use cannibalism as a metaphor for coming of age, and I find it really interesting and it really works for me. Number 7 is We Are What We Are from 2010. After the death of a patriarch, a family must try to continue on with a disturbing ritualistic tradition. I was debating whether or not to put this one or the remake from 2013 on this list, but I haven't seen either, so I figured I would just put the original on here. But if you want to swap this one out with the remake from 2013, be my guest. Number 8 is The Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974. Who will survive and what will be left of them? When Sally hears that her grandfather's grave may have been vandalized, she and her friends set out to investigate. After a detour to her family's old farmhouse, they discover a group of crazed, murderous outcasts living next door. As the group is attacked one by one, the survivors must do everything they can to escape. It is very well known that this movie has one of the most disturbing dinner scenes in any horror movie ever, so of course I had to include it on here, and it's just a classic that I can rewatch any time of year. Number 9 is Eraserhead from 1977. Henry Spencer tries to survive his industrial environment, his angry girlfriend, and the unbearable screams of his newly born mutant child. I know that Lynch isn't for everyone, especially not this movie, but I wanted to include it because it does have a deeply disturbing dinner scene. I mean, those little roast chickens who may or may not be dead. And there's also a healthy dose of existential dread in this film, which I feel like I get more around the holidays for some reason. Let me know if you feel the same way. Number 10 is You're Next from 2011. When the Davison family comes under attack during their wedding anniversary getaway, the gang of mysterious killers soon learns that one of their victims harbors a secret talent for fighting back. I see this one on a lot of Thanksgiving horror lists or Thanksgiving adjacent horror movie lists because of the family dinner setting, and we get a really badass final girl who kicks a lot of animal mask wearing butt in it. Number 11 is Hereditary from 2018. Every family tree hides a secret. When Ellen, the matriarch of the Graham family, passes away, her daughter's family begins to unravel cryptic and increasingly terrifying secrets about their ancestry. Arguably, this movie has the most iconic dinner scene of any modern horror movie, so of course I had to include it. And what more can I say besides, don't you ever swear at me. Don't you ever swear at me, you little shit. Don't you ever raise your voice at me. I am your mother. Do you understand? Anyway, number 12 is Blood Freak from 1972. A biker comes upon a girl with a flat tire and offers her a ride home. He winds up at a drug party with the girl's sister, then follows her to a turkey farm owned by her father, a mad scientist. The father turns the biker into a giant turkey monster who goes after drug dealers. So we're obviously taking a huge dip in quality from Hereditary with this one, and I've never actually seen it, but for those who are fans of Red Letter Media, I did watch their Best of the Worst episode where they cover it, so I know a lot of the plot and everything. And yeah, it definitely looks pretty low budget, pretty rough. One of the guys, for fans who know Mike, said this about the movie: "It's so gross and I want to have a shower after watching it. It's like one of those disgusting 70s movies where you're like, what's wrong with everyone?" So yeah, it's not gonna be good, but it's a movie about a killer turkey man, so it's on the list. Speaking of killer turkeys, number 13 is Thanksgiving from 2008. Gobble gobble, motherfucker. A homicidal turkey axes off college kids during Thanksgiving break. I did try to watch this at one point, and I think I got maybe like 5 minutes into it and turned it off, so I'm gonna give it another try because, you know, it's listed on all of the Thanksgiving horror lists, so I'll give it a second shot and we'll see. Number 14 is Escape Room from 2019. Find the clues or die. 6 strangers find themselves in circumstances beyond their control and must use their wits to survive. This is actually the second Taylor Russell movie on this list after Bones and All. I included it because her character Zoe is apparently on her Thanksgiving break at college or something. I think I read that somewhere, so that was good enough for me. Plus, it's a really good, really fun movie with a lot of interesting set pieces throughout. Number 15 is The Devastator, aka Hostile Takeover from 1988. A man on the edge has nothing to lose. A man takes 3 coworkers hostage while working overtime on Thanksgiving weekend. He has no demands. This is directed by George Mihalka, who also directed My Bloody Valentine, the original, which is one of my favorite holiday horror movies of all time. So I've never heard of this movie. I'm really interested to see what he does with it. I actually just found it on YouTube, so I'll go ahead and link it in the description if you want to watch it. Number 16 is The Last Thanksgiving from 2020. A family of cannibalistic pilgrims attacks a restaurant that stays open on Thanksgiving rather than close in celebration of the holiday. Horror icon Linnea Quigley is in this, and that's really the only other notable thing about it besides the fact that it's set on Thanksgiving. So it does look pretty low budget, but I'm just hoping that it's entertaining and really leans into the holiday horror. Number 17 is Thanksgiving from 2023. There will be no leftovers. After a Black Friday riot ends in tragedy, a mysterious Thanksgiving-inspired killer terrorizes Plymouth, Massachusetts, the birthplace of the infamous holiday. So if you are doing the one movie a day on this list, this falls on the 17th, which is the release date for Thanksgiving. And all I have to say is I am not historically a fan of Eli Roth's work. I have a lot of issues with him and his direction and the projects that he chooses. So this is one that I'm actually really excited to see, and I'm just holding out hope that it becomes a new Thanksgiving horror classic, and I don't have to add it to my list of disappointments by Eli Roth. So in case that ends up being a flop, I have an absolute classic at number 18, and that is Addams Family Values from 1993. Siblings Wednesday and Pugsley Addams will stop at nothing to get rid of Pubert, the new baby adored by parents Gomez and Morticia. Things go from bad to worse when the new Black Widow nanny, Debbie Jelinski, launches her plan to add Fester to her collection of dead husbands. Okay, I know this isn't technically horror, but it is a Thanksgiving tradition to watch this movie. I just absolutely love the part where Wednesday commandeers the camp play, and if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. So I really felt like I had to include it despite the fact that it's not really a horror movie. Number 19 is Christy from 2014. Run for your life. When a college girl who is alone on campus over the Thanksgiving break is targeted by a group of outcasts, she must conquer her deepest fears to outwit them and fight back. This one seems like it might be pretty similar to the movie P2, which is a Christmas horror movie, and it's like a cat and mouse kind of thriller horror movie, so I'm always down to watch one of those. So this one looks pretty promising. Number 20 is Home Sweet Home from 1981.
This year, it's not the turkey being carved for Thanksgiving. An escaped mental patient steals a station wagon and makes his way to the Bradleys' Thanksgiving celebration, where he plans to make them a little less thankful.
So a woman named Nettie Pena is the director of this movie, and as far as I can tell, it's the only feature film that she ever directed. She went on to become an award-winning photographer after this, but I always love to see a slasher that is directed by a woman, especially a woman of color. Number 21 is Flesh and Blood from 2018.
This Thanksgiving, carve out some family time. Kimberly, a teenager suffering from agoraphobia, has not left the house since her mother's unsolved murder. On the eve of Thanksgiving, she begins to suspect the safe harbor of home and her doting father may be a dangerous mirage.
This is actually from Hulu's Into the Dark anthology series, where each episode is basically like a feature-length film, and it appears to be that they're all based on different holidays. So this is obviously the Thanksgiving one, and it's not the only one because the next movie on this list, number 22, is Pilgrim from 2019.
In an attempt to remind her family of their privilege and help them bond, Ms. Anna Barker invites Pilgrim reenactors to stay with them over Thanksgiving. When the actors refuse to break character, the Barker family learns that there is such a thing as too much gratitude.
This movie was directed by Mark Dunstan, who also directed The Collector and The Collection, two movies that I really enjoy, so I'm looking forward to this one and seeing what he does with this subject matter, and if I like it and I like Flesh and Blood, I'll definitely be checking out more of the Into the Dark series on Hulu. Number 23, and the movie that's set to be on Thanksgiving Day, Blood Rage from 1987.
In 1974, Terry commits a murder and pins it on his twin brother Todd. 10 years later, Todd escapes from a mental institution on the same day as Terry's murderous instincts resurface.
It's not cranberry sauce. Blood Rage is a Thanksgiving horror classic, so of course I had to have it fall on Thanksgiving Day. Number 24 is Black Friday from 2021.
They have no idea what tonight has in store. A group of toy store employees must protect each other from a horde of parasite-infected shoppers.
And of course, I had to have this as number 24 because the 24th is Black Friday this year, and it's a movie with Bruce Campbell and Evan Sawa, so I will watch anything with both of them in it once. So the last 6 movies on this list are Indigenous horror movies, and we're starting it off pretty heavy with number 25 with Rhymes for Young Ghouls from 2013.
Growing up means getting even. In 1976, a Micmac teenager plots revenge against the sadistic Indian agent who imprisoned her in a residential school where rape and abuse are common.
This movie is directed by Jeff Barnaby, who is of the Mi'kmaq people. I'm really sorry if I'm saying that wrong. I think I said it wrong in my voiceover, so I do apologize for that. It is about residential schools in Canada, which, if you're not aware of what those are, I really encourage you to research it because it's absolutely awful, but it's something that we need to remember happened. And this movie is one that I've been meaning to watch for a really long time, and I know it's going to be a difficult watch, but I've heard it is really excellent. Number 26 is Don't Say Its Name from 2021.
After an environmental activist is called back to the living world by her mother after a questionable accident that cost her her life, an ancient spirit is reborn outside of a small northern town out of revenge for the loss of her daughter's life. She returns as a Wendigo, a ferocious creature that only gets hungrier the more it eats.
I believe that the Wendigo is similar to the Wendigo in this film, and I've seen horror movies about the Wendigo myth before, but they've all been by white people, so I'm really looking forward to seeing this myth through an Indigenous lens. Number 27 is Bedevil from 1993.
3 stories of the supernatural are recounted in this anthology. Rick, an Aboriginal boy living near a swamp on Barbie Island, is haunted by an American soldier who drowned in quicksand. Ruby and her family live in a house near long abandoned train tracks which still carry ghostly apparitions. A landlord has trouble evicting the tenants of an old warehouse, a couple that's been dead for years.
This is the only anthology film on this list, and fun fact, it is the first ever feature film directed by an Australian Aboriginal woman. The director is Tracy Moffat, and you should look her up if you've never heard of her because she is an absolute badass, and her work mostly focuses on Australian Aboriginal people and their culture, so it's just really, really cool. Plus, this movie movie looks really visually beautiful, and I had never heard of it before researching for this list, so I'm really pumped to see it. Number 28 is Slashback from 2022.
These aliens messed with the wrong girls. In a remote Arctic community, a group of Inuit girls fight off an alien invasion, all while trying to make it to the coolest party in town.
I am super interested in seeing this because of the representation of Indigenous people in the Arctic, and it does seem like it's a really good kids on bikes movie, which, if you've never heard that term, it's movies like it where there's a ragtag group of kids going around and trying to protect themselves from some kind of evil force. So I'm always down to watch a movie like that. They're usually a really good time. Number 29 is Prey from 2022.
On the Great Plains in 1719, Naru, a fierce and highly skilled Comanche warrior, sets out to protect her people when an unknown danger threatens them. But the prey she's stalking turns out to be a highly evolved alien predator with a technically advanced arsenal.
I saw this last year and I really enjoyed it, but I did watch the English version, so this time I'm definitely going to be watching the Comanche version. Naru is such an amazing protagonist. We really root for her the whole time, and I really think that it's one of the best, if not the best, prequel of a franchise that I've ever seen. Last but not least, at number 30, we have Blood Quantum from 2019.
The dead are coming back to life outside the isolated Micmac reserve of Red Crow, except for its indigenous inhabitants who are strangely immune to the zombie plague.
I've heard excellent things about this one, and it's also directed by Jeff Barnaby, the director of Rhymes for Young Ghouls, and unfortunately I did learn that he passed away last year due to cancer. He was only 46 years old, which is just so sad. But I did learn that in his honor, there is a Jeff Barnaby grant that is a program that is supposed to help emerging Indigenous filmmakers, so I think that is incredible, truly awesome that we have something like that, and we need more things like that in film. So that's it. That's my list of 30 horror movies to watch in November. I hope this cures your Halloween hangover, and I hope that you got some good inspiration for movies to watch in November and the rest of the year. Like I said earlier, us horror fans, we never stop watching horror. We'll always keep watching it no matter what time of year it is. Thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope you have an amazing day, and we'll talk horror next time.